This message brought to you by Chicanos por la Causa.
Bienvenidos and welcome to another segment of La Plática. This is Jose Leyba. Today we are here in Los Angeles at Milagro Studios, and this is part of our new program, Los Angeles Barrio Stories, where we try to capture stories from the individuals, legendary individuals, and we need our young people to listen to these stories. Today I have the legendary filmmaker and Chicano, Moctesuma Esparza. Welcome, Moctesuma.
Jose, it's a pleasure to be with you. I look forward to this conversation.
Really great, thank you. We're going to talk like if we're in my Nana's living room, okay? Because I think that relaxes me a little bit more and also you. So tell us where you grew up, and then we can get into how you became this legendary trailblazer for all other Chicano filmmakers.
I grew up in Boyle Heights, in a community that is next to the housing project Ramona Gardens. And that little neighborhood was known as Big Hazard.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, how were you spurred to get an education? What was the determining factor that helped you?
My father was a huge influence on me, and although my dad only got to the 4th grade, he was born in 1900 in a little village in Los Altos de Jalisco called Villa Hidalgo. Our home was full of books, and he was constantly reading. And so I was known in the neighborhood as the only Cholo who carried books.
Okay, now you have a new title, right? The only Cholo who carried books. Maybe that's a new film or a new story, right? So that's pretty amazing. So now, facing that pressure, you became an activist at UCLA. You were in MEChA, and tell us about those days.
Well, I was in large measure conditioned and educated by my father to be an activist.
Okay.
He had been selected by his peers in Villa Hidalgo to go to the Aguascalientes Constitutional Convention of 1917. But he left, and he came to the United States. And here he was part of the larger circle of Flores Magón, the Magón brothers, who are the intellectual, philosophical underpinnings of the Mexican Revolution.
Okay.
Right, their newspaper, Regeneración, was smuggled into Mexico for a decade and was the underpinnings of fomenting social justice and the revolution in Mexico. So my dad was part of that circle, and I grew up hearing about the Mexican Revolution and about the conquest and the injustices that had befallen our people. So by the time I was 13, 14, I was already meeting activists in the community.
Okay.
I had already met people like Bert Corona.
Yes, very famous.
And Tony Rios. And I had come under the influence of Father Wood and Father Garver and the Episcopal priest of Lincoln Heights at Church of the Epiphany.
Okay.
And Father John Luce in particular. And so I was always hanging out at the rectory, and Father Luce would engage me and several other of us in philosophical conversations. He wasn't proselytizing me to become part of his congregation.
Okay.
He was training me to be an activist.
Right, an activist.
And so the Brown Berets were born in his rectory, and so was United Mexican American Students. And so was the newspaper La Raza.
Okay.
All of that was happening in his basement, right?
That is an amazing story. So you've had a lot of individuals that kind of help you form this revolutionary spirit. And I know that a lot of folks our age, I remember my tata talking about the revolution and his dad being a villista and how he had to leave, once the Villa was assassinated, but he came back with that revolutionary heart. I remember him telling many stories. So now you're at UCLA and you're part of the Biltmore Six. Can you tell us about that particular story?
Well, when I went to UCLA, I immediately started organizing and was one of the founders of United Mexican American Students, which became MEChA.
MEChA, right.
Right, and I was already one of the founders of the Brown Berets.
Okay.
So we were constantly organizing. I mean, I'm amazed that I managed to graduate with my BA in 4 years on time.
Wow, congratulations. That's not unheard of nowadays.
And I got my graduate degree in, there was a residency requirement of 2 years, and I petitioned to be let out early. So I got out of my graduate degree in 5 quarters.
Wow.
So I wanted out. I wanted to continue to be an organizer. And I ended up being one of the East LA 13, one of the 13 people who were indicted by the grand jury for having organized the walkouts. And I was out on bail, my own recognizance, with the East LA 13. And I continued to be an activist. And I went to a Nuevas Vistas conference of bilingual educators that was being held at the Biltmore Hotel. And the keynote speaker was Governor Reagan. So many of us from UCLA and Brown Berets and others decided that we would go there and protest the fact that he was cutting bilingual education out of the state budget. And he was the keynote speaker at a bilingual
conference. What an oxymoron there, right?
So we went, we organized, and we marched in front and clapped inappropriately. That's when he didn't want us to clap. And I still remember the governor saying, "Arrest them!" And the police streamed in to the Biltmore Bowl at the hotel. And over 40 of us were arrested that night.
Okay.
And Richard Alatorre, who I had known since I was in the 9th grade, personally went and bailed me out that night. And within the month, charges were dropped against me and 6 others. There was a total of 7 of us. And we wondered, what the heck is this about? And then Father Luce called me and he said, "You got to get out of town. They've indicted you again and you're at risk because you're out on bail right now." So I became a fugitive. And I later found out that one of his parishioners was on the grand jury.
Okay.
And she had, in her private moment with Father Luce, shared that, and he told me to get out of town.
So a little bit of divine intervention there, right? That's an amazing story.
And so I was hiding out with a neighbor friend of mine who was also indicted, and we were together, and we arranged for our surrender. And so we had to be very careful, because this was a moment in which Counter-Interpol was active, and many people had been killed by the police at that point. So it was terrifying. And so we did surrender, and then I went through a full jury trial. It took 3 years, and ultimately was acquitted.
What an inspiring journey you've had there in terms of your activism, being jailed, and then you turn all that emotion, anger, I'm supposing, into this legendary career as a filmmaker. So how was that transition for you?
Well, while I was still under indictment before the trial occurred, I applied to graduate school.
Okay.
Because the trial didn't happen until, let's see, 71. And the summer of 70 or 71. And I got turned down everywhere. And I graduated with a B+ average, UCLA. I thought I was a good candidate for grad school. But I was still under indictment, so no, they all turned me down. But this film school, where I had gotten my BA, wanted me back. And I had been originally a history major.
Yeah.
And as a history major, I had taken a course in California history. Professor Huntington had written the textbook. And I did not cite his textbook in the final exam. I cited what he considered to be revisionist texts, which are now really kind of very mild. It was Carey McMillan's North from Mexico, and Leonard Plitt, The Decline of the Californios, that I cited. So he told me I had no future in the history department.
Now, was that motivation for you to show him that you had a history somewhere else, right?
Well, yeah, I ended up doing over a dozen historical movies. So yes, there was a little bit of a revenge there. But no, I decided that maybe there was a future for me in the film school. A professor, Eliseo Taylor, African American, who had been my mentor in the film school, told me that I wasn't looking at it correctly, that I didn't understand what my strength and talent was. So I said, so what are you talking about? He says, well, you're a producer. You get people to do things. And se me prendió el foco. And I says, yes, I'm an organizer.
Right.
I've been trained as an organizer. And so he explained to me that's what a producer was.
Wow. I hear that all the time, se me prendió el foco, you know, and I'm just getting a light bulb right now thinking about, you made so many movies. What was your favorite? Do you have a favorite that led you to then establish the Milagro Cinemas, or how did that idea come?
Well, no, I don't have a favorite.
Okay.
I mean, do you have a favorite child?
They're all favorites, right?
That's right, and you're not going to admit otherwise.
No, especially not on camera.
There we go. So, no, I have no favorite. But what did happen is that when I produced Milagro Beanfield War,
Right.
For Universal Studios, I organized benefit premieres in 20 cities. And I went all over the United States where there was a big population of raza. And I found that there were no quality first-run movie theaters in any Latino community in the United States. Not in Miami, not in New York, not in Chicago, not in Phoenix, not in Albuquerque, not in Dallas, not in San Antonio, not in San Diego, not in Sacramento, not in Los Angeles, nowhere. So here in Los Angeles, we had to have the benefit premiere at Universal City
Okay.
Walk, right? And likewise in every other city. So, you know, I thought about that, you know, because I had grown up being able to walk to 3 movie theaters in my neighborhood. And so I saw that movie theaters had left the inner city, had left the barrios. And it had happened everywhere. So this was actually a phenomenon of the industry. 10 years later, I also arranged for benefit premieres for Selena, right? And this time it was for Warner Brothers, and I did 15 premieres, because the first time with 20 I almost killed myself. And I found that not even second-run movie theaters were left in the barrios 10 years later. They were all closed. They were now churches, parking lots, flea markets, or boarded up buildings. So I was at that moment getting ready to exit a business that I had founded called Buenavision Cable TV. If you wanted to have cable TV and you lived in Boyle Heights or East LA, you called my company.
Okay.
Right, which
So
I
continue to serve your community.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
because I had gotten the franchise to build a cable system in East LA, and I went to the Board of Supervisors, and I didn't have any money, I didn't have anything. And then I said, give me this franchise. And, you know, when they interviewed me, they said, well, why should we? I says, well, nobody else wants it, let me have a shot.
Right.
And they had given a franchise to another company that had handed it back, right? Because they didn't think there was a business there.
Right.
So it took me 3-4 years, and I raised a couple of $1 million, and I built over 300 miles of cable plant and established a cable company. And I ran that for 20 years, and then my investors wanted their money back, so I had to sell.
Okay.
But it gave me more capital, and I wanted to stay in the delivery of entertainment in the Latino community. And so this experience of having seen that there were no movie theaters gave me the inspiration to found MEChA Cinemas.
Well, congratulations, because this is a state-of-the-art studio. We were all impressed, our whole crew, about how clean, how neat, and we encourage all of our viewers, Milagro Cinemas, there's 7 of them here in LA. Look them up, support them. It's from a legendary person here.
Well, I have to correct you. They're not all in LA. This is the only one here in Norwalk Town Square.
Okay.
This is Milagro Cinemas, and it's a new company that I founded.
All right.
And there were 6 other locations that are MEChA Cinemas, and they're all in Northern California in the Central Valley, and 1 in Las Vegas. And of course, they're all my children. I founded them all, I built them all, and they're all beautiful, and they're all state-of-the-art, and they all have the best possible technology, because I believe that we deserve it.
I think we do. Thank you. Thank you. As we begin to round up and to close up our session today, what final words would you like to tell our audience of over close to 1 million viewers?
Well, I believe that we are the future of this country, and we need to stand up and document who we are and let the country know of the richness of what we have contributed to this country. Hollywood has been a huge negative force in our community's life.
Absolutely.
Because for over 100 years, we've only seen the negative stereotypes portrayed.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry to say that one of those stereotypes has been wiped out, and that was the Latin lover. Even that's gone. Right, because we did have Ramon Navarro and Anthony Quinn and Ricardo Montalban and all those great actors. But we disappeared from the positive portrayals of Hollywood, and we're just beginning to make a comeback. We're not as well off as we were in the 40s. There were more Latino stars in the 40s than there are now.
What an amazing fact. Amazing.
So we need to change that, because it changes how we're viewed, how we are perceived, not just here in the United States, but the world.
Absolutely.
You go to Turkey and you tell them you're a Mexican and they think you're a drug dealer. Right? You go anywhere in the world and it's Hollywood that determines how we are viewed, which is why a presidential candidate was able to call us racist words, right? That we are hoodlums and we are the worst and we are rapists and we're murderers, because Hollywood allowed that imagery.
That stereotype still permeates all of Hollywood, as you mentioned.
So we need to stand up.
Okay.
We need to reclaim our legacy in this country, which is one of having shed our blood in every single war, from the Revolutionary War to the present. We have been part of the fabric of this country. In fact, people don't know that Admiral Galvez saved Washington.
In D.C., correct.
Right, several times. And he had 9,000 Latino Marines, more soldiers that were in the Continental Army, fighting for the creation of this country. So we need to let America know that we are this country.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's a wonderful message to all of our audience. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here on LA Barrio Stories and Latino USA TV. Change those stereotypes, promote the positive, and I'm honored. With all my respect, I want to thank our legendary Chicano from Boyle Heights in East LA, who's led the way for all the next generations to come. This is Dr. Jose Leyba signing off. I'm just so inspired. I'm amazed, and I just can't say how inspired I am by you. Thank you so much. Hasta la próxima vez. This is Los Angeles Barrio Stories and Latino USA TV. Hasta pronto. Muchísimas gracias y viva la raza.
¡Que viva!
¡Que viva!
¡Que viva!